So Matthew the tax collector, he was. It says part of the slide didn't. There we go, and there's the slide. All right. So Matthew the tax collector, he was an eyewitness to Jesus's ministry. So besides Peter, James, and John, he pretty much more than anyone saw Jesus's life for what it was. And he was known as an evangelist as well. He comes from the Greek title of evangelion, which means good news. And we have been talking about the good news, so that makes perfect sense here. Okay, so the next slide is we're going to talk about John Mark. So for those of you guys know the Gospels, it's Matthew, Mark, but most of you might not have known that his name was referred to as John Mark. He's a minor biblical figure in the first century. He's traditionally been known for writing the book of Mark. In the book of Acts, he was a companion of Paul and Barnabas on their trip. While the Bible doesn't confirm or deny this, he did develop a very close relationship with Peter. We can see that when we look at his gospel, and from the gospel records, Peter's account was used very frequently by Mark in his book. His name first appears in Acts 12:12 when Peter escapes from prison, which is a fantastic story there. You need to read it. And he leaves and he goes to this house of other Christians that he meets. It's actually his mother, Mary, not the mother of Jesus. Otherwise, that would make him the brother of Jesus. Yep. And he's not. So many scholars would say that this was the long start of a relationship between him and John Mark. Which is, we get a huge part of, as I said, Jesus's account of, Peter's account of Jesus's life in his book. So, and another thing to note too is the New Testament doesn't really mention his name that many times. Here and there it does, but we do believe 100% that he was the writer of Mark, and a lot of biblical scholars would think that it's actually the first gospel ever written. So without further ado, here we go with Fast Facts. So we talked about a couple things here with John Mark, but John Mark is his nickname. He was the son of Mary, a companion of Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas's cousin, and there is a reference to him named as Mark as the cousin of Barnabas. So many scholars believe that this is a reference to him being the cousin of Barnabas. And he also was not an eyewitness. Not an eyewitness to Jesus, as we said, an eyewitness to the gospel. He got most of his stuff from Peter. All right, so let's move on to Luke. Oh, totally forgot to tell you. Why was there a lion in the back? Go figure. You're probably sitting there this whole time looking at this lion being like, what is this lion? Why is there a lion? Well, let me tell you. Yes, let me tell you why there's a lion. So there's the story of him running with his father, and all of a sudden these two lions started charging at them, and the boy was not scared. John Mark? No, he is not scared of these lions. And his dad assured him that he would be okay to run, but John Mark said, you know what? I'm going to pray, and that the Lord would protect him. So we can't even speak today. We can see some boldness here from John Mark from the beginning. All right, on to Luke, the great physician. So Luke was also known as an evangelist. We see him here in this picture, working with a boy as he was a doctor. He is the author of both the Gospel of Luke and some parts of Acts. Luke was not an eyewitness to Jesus's ministry, but he did follow around Paul and had direct access to the apostles and other